order at 6:30. Welcome everybody to the Deutschen Pfest Steering Committee meeting. My name is Shay Mize, Director of Parks and Rec. We're going to go to slide or agenda item 2. Citizens communication. The committee welcomes comments on items related to Deutschen Pfest. Public comment that is made on an item is not on the published agenda will be heard by the committee. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to state his or her name and address for public record. Do we have anyone with public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to number 3. This is approval of minutes. Discuss and consider action to approve the minutes from Deutschen Pfest Steering Committee on April 11th. Give you all a second to look it over, and if everyone feels comfortable, we'll just take a motion in a second.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Awesome. With a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank y'all. Moving on. 4, discuss only. Discussion regarding the Department and Advisory Committee update. Go ahead. Yeah. So this is department update. We're going to talk a little bit about the council subcommittee, budget that we're working on right now, the slice recap, something to build off of, the Juneteenth event, Pride event that we have upcoming and how it could impact ours. I don't think it'll impact us much, but you just need to be aware. And then the Gilling Creek Park updates. Next slide. Slice. Slice was a great event. We had some weather that we were battling leading up to the event. And so we ultimately had to cancel the 24 artisan vendors. We were still able to have our 9 food vendors, the alcohol vendors, the cultural performers, the community performances, and the 3 main stage acts. We had over 7,000 attendees, which is a 10% increase over last year. And we saw a real huge jump in our dwell time. We had 145 minutes, almost 150 minutes of dwell time, which was 2.5 hours, a 28% increase over last year for this same event. So it was a really great event. The weather ultimately stayed back. The wind was the concern, not really lightning or rain per se. We were expecting some rain leading into it, but it was really just the wind picking up one of those pavilions and making a sail out of it and then making that into a weapon and landing into somebody else. We worked with Fire Marshal and Emergency Management Office, and ultimately Wednesday or Thursday of that week we ended up canceling. Wednesday of that week we ended up canceling the artisan booths. So we knew it'd feel lean in some ways because there wasn't as much to keep you there other than just the entertainment and the food. But we saw a dwell time increase. We would have loved to see what the event would have looked like with all of our 24 artisans. But it's a great event to build off for us as we are all working on Deutschen Pfest. And we're starting to see some momentum with all of our events. Deutschen Pfest averages 8,000?
6,500.
6,500 over 2 days. We saw 7,000 over this 5 or 6 hour stretch. So big event for us.
And Deutschen Pfest sees a 163-minute dwell time. So still a little bit higher than Slice, but very close.
Yeah, I think some of those folks that got there at 1 or 2 o'clock with nothing but food to keep you there, no artisans, a lot of areas to play. A lot of people held out for Los Lonely Boys, but the ones that didn't, I think they just, they couldn't last that long. So next slide. Subcommittee update. So our subcommittee members are Mayor Gonzalez and Councilmember Holliday. A subcommittee is it's a subcommittee from council. It has 2 council members, and we have different types of subcommittees. We have facility subcommittees. We have event subcommittees. We have subcommittees I probably don't know about. There's a council member here that could probably tell us more about it, but it's just a way for council to have a deeper dive in an aspect of what we're doing in the city without having to have a quorum all the time, right? So instead of having 4 or more council members there and having a quorum and posting an agenda, like we do for events like these two council members can work with staff, particularly on a specific subject. Our subject is the event subcommittee, so it's events. And these are the folks that we reach out to, we build consensus with, and then they help us when we go to council with any type of requests. We meet the first Monday of every month at 8 a.m. Brutal for me, but it seems to work for everybody else. And we mentioned some of the things we had talked with y'all about at the last meeting. And some of the response we got back, they were very interested in what we had originally talked about in our wonder sessions. One of them, that we had talked about was the German heritage of the event, and the direction from them was they don't want to see us lose the German heritage of the event, and I think that's the same with y'all. But they did say it could be small as long as it's intentional. It doesn't have to be a German event. It doesn't have to be Wurstfest. It doesn't have to be an Oktoberfest. It does have to retain that German heritage, but it doesn't have to be the full event. So that's great for us because I think that's a lot of what y'all talked about as well, having some aspects that were German. I think we talked about Germantown or some sort of German area that would be hyper-focused on some of that heritage and maybe some of the cool things. So we're in line with subcommittee on that. They also were interested in what the expansion of this event would look like if it went to multiple parks and if we lost. Going to multiple parks, as Jonathan and others will talk about later, obviously prevents us from having all the gates and the fencing that would take and us being able to charge any fees. So their thing was, let's just see what we're working on with fees to equal out the impact of losing the revenue on the gate. And then they wanted to make sure we were working with PD and the Emergency Management Operations Office to make sure that any expansion and any changes were something that they signed off on and understood as well. And we have. Next slide. Juneteenth is coming up next month. And the reason I bring that up is because it uses a lot of the footprint that we use right now for Deutschen Pfest. And it has food vendors and things like that. So if you want to see how Deutschen Pfest is engaging the community, at least the footprint, come on out to Juneteenth in the next couple weeks. Next slide. Also, Pride. Pride has, I'd say historically, but we've only had two Pride events. But Pride has historically been a summer event. They're trying to mitigate some of the issues that they have being on concrete in the middle of some of the hottest times in Texas every year by moving their event to the fall. And I believe they're following the lead of some other Pride festivals or organizers that are doing the same. I think you'll be able to find some Pride festivals in June, which is Pride Month, but they're moving to the fall. Now, it's not on our weekend, but it will be near our weekend. We don't know for sure what that date is, but they're looking at dates at the last weekend in September and the first weekend, I believe, in October were some of the ones that they floated. Our staff is working with them as far as permitting process. They're working on some smaller fundraisers. They're still planning on doing it downtown, and I think they're trying to partner with Parks and Rec on events when possible. Once we find out when their location is, it may be something that this group wants to have a booth at for theirs to talk about Deutschen Pfest and to advertise for Deutschen Pfest, with it being that close to, our event as well. So just bringing that up, making sure it's something that y'all are aware of. Next slide. Gillen Creek Pavilion. So it's tough to see in this photo, but the benches, the picnic tables and benches are brand new. And the masonry columns around the welded steel frames are new as well. It was part of an update that we've been working on. We re-welded some areas, made sure they were strong, that this building can last another 20 or 30 years, and just did an update to the facade. Putting the masonry columns also protects some of the spots that had been exposed to some elements and had caused some welds to weaken. So those areas are now capped off with masonry. It should be much tougher for those areas to weaken in the future. The welds have already been secured per the assessment for the structural study, and then we replaced all the benches. So that's great for this upcoming week. We have a memorial event put on by one of our local American Legion groups. They'll appreciate that new space, but y'all have used historically this space as well. So a little upgrade. We expect painting to happen, but we're not going to do it in the summer. because our camps use this space as well, and so we don't want to put out our local campers. So we'll wait till camp's over, and then we'll paint in the fall. So by the time y'all are using this location, it'll have these masonry columns, it'll have these new picnic tables and benches, and it'll have a facelift on the painting side as well. Next slide. Also, Gillen Creek Playground is getting an update. Right now, if you see what you see up there, you'll see the full scope of that, which actually won us an accreditation with the National Playground, one of the National Playground foundations. It's an accredited site for people to come out and use as a demo site, and we won an award for it at our state conference last year. Part of the problem is some of the stuff we're doing impedes on parts of the floodplain and floodway. So we're having to get a CLOMAR, which is an acronym for something. It just means it takes a lot longer than you thought it was going to take, loosely translated into that. But we are able to replace the pieces that are in the ground now because we're not adding to or taking from the floodplain. So the green structure is the current playground location. That playground will be flipped this summer, and is it the swings, Junior? The swings will be, I guess, replaced and facelift. So those two items will be new for y'all by the time fall happens for sure. The areas that are being added are the huge structure, which you'll obviously be able to appreciate come future Deutschen Pfest, but I'll be honest, a CLOMAR normally takes a year to get through FEMA and all the places that have to approve those improvements, and I don't think we'll have that by the time Deutsche Fest happens. So this structure will be coming in the future. It's already been approved by council. It's actually already been invoiced, but we have to get FEMA to sign off on the impact before we can put that really cool three shade structure up. So we will see a playground improvement though. So the Gillen Creek Pavilion's getting improved, and the playground's getting improved by the time that we have our Deutschen Fest event, which will be great for whatever we program over at that space. Next slide. And then it's Jonathan.
So I just wanted to welcome Susan Meyer, our newest committee member. She was approved at the May 14th council meeting. So, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I know we're missing a couple of members tonight, but just to go around, if you'll share your name and how long you have either attended or been on the committee.
Susan Meyer, first committee.
I'm Rachel, and this is my second meeting.
But y'all been longtime attendees of the Deutschen Fest, right?
Oh, I have.
Yep.
Correct.
See how old is she?
Look at that.
Kelly, this is my second year on the committee, and long time, 20 years? Yeah, Deutsche Pfest.
Awesome.
Efren, this is my second meeting, and Deutschen Fest forever, I guess. So.
We're going to go to the back, staff.
Oh, Junior Rodriguez, Park Superintendent.
I'm Jeff Shea, Assistant Director.
Angelique Rome, Communication Specialist.
Flip Romeo, emotional support.
Jim, I'm Flip's bodyguard.
That's right.
Carla, Tourism and Marketing.
My name is Paige Garish. I'm Business Operations Supervisor with Parks.
Gabby Vega, I'm the Event Specialist with Parks.
I'm Jimmy Jordan, Business Operations Coordinator with Parks and Rec.
Shane Meisen with Parks and Rec.
Jonathan Hanson, the Rec Superintendent. So, just wanted to get everybody on the same page as we work together to make a really awesome Deutschen Fest this year. So, item 4B, discussion regarding potential layout options and event impact. So, I'm going to let Baze and Gabby take this first part of it.
Yeah. So just a small recap of kind of the things we talked about. At last event was obviously adding, or last meeting was adding some kind of maybe German focused, German land, some kind of German area. Again, if the whole event maybe is not super German focused, but having some point of emphasis about it. Extending the event to Gillen Creek Park. So what we've lightly used in the past with the pavilion that we just talked about, but potentially expanding to that side, and then also looking at removing the gates and making it a free event and kind of what flexibility or other opportunities maybe that affords us. So there's some things we talked about last meeting. So a little bit of what we call discernment. So a little bit of kind of taking all those wonder moments we've talked about and kind of figuring out what might be some more actionable items for us. So really the first step in any event planning year, and this is no different, is going to be figuring out what our layout looks like for this year. So since last meeting, we've been working on a possibility we think is maybe feasible. So y'all take a look and see. So we'll go over it slightly, and then of course most of this meeting will be kind of talking about exactly what you're looking at and what that means. So obviously in the top right corner, the red section is Pfluger Park, where obviously we've always held Deutschen Pfest, and that has kind of been the, more or less, except for the little Gillen Creek side, has been the extent of the footprint. Obviously you kind of have the park access area just between there and the Kemple, the orange section there. So we have Pfluger. The middle section there is Kemple Park in general, and then we've also highlighted the yellow is the actual like trail sections, the concrete official kind of trail sections there along the creek, and then you get all the way down on the left side with Finnick Park. So this is kind of the layout that we have looked at internally. Like I said, I know even referenced last meeting, we looked at going to the Gillen Creek side, but I'm just not sure, and as a staff, we're not sure that that's going to afford us the area that with some of the things we've talked about, maybe as just a like square footage situation, that really gives us the most expansion to be able to do what we really, I think, are all aiming to do. So anyway, we'll talk more about this as we go through. We have some slides, obviously, that cover different aspects of the event, and we'll kind of talk about how that may look in this scenario as we go through it. And then obviously, I'm sure you'll speak up. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, to further Baze's point, we heard you expanding the event. All of us during the Wonder Session thought, let's expand at Gillen Creek, because that's where we had expanded previously when there was some sort of flood or weather or some other event had caused some of these temporary expansions into that site. The problem with Gillen Creek on our thought process and why this just seems like a better option that we want to fully vet out with y'all. Come on in. The problem with that is Gillen Creek has a huge parking lot, has a huge pool, and other than that, there's a little bit of green space, but there's not a lot of program space to really work with. So it is expanding into another park, but there's not much you can do on that space to really set your teeth into like a real expansion. So this is what expansion really looks like, and this is what, the possibility of seeing this event grow in the future and what it could really look like in the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years, the growth of it. This is where this is where we think the best case for expansion really looks like.
All right, so like I said, so we'll kind of go through each of these different topics about the event. We'll talk about kind of what we have kind of thought of internally as our ideas, and of course, definitely get y'all's feedback. We really just got started.
I got you.
Event part, so you haven't really missed much.
I got you.
As far as Deutsche Pfest is concerned. All right, so entertainment. So again, I know this is kind of hard, so instead of flipping the PowerPoint back a million times, that's why we printed out the map for you, so kind of keep that handy so we can reference it. But entertainment, so number of stages. I think we'll obviously have a main stage in Pfluger Park like we normally would have, and then a second main stage B, if you will, like in Finnick Park, which right now potentially could be like our stage, the stage pictured, would be possibly the one in Finnick, and then we would have one more similar to Slice potentially. If y'all saw the stage we had for Slice of Pflugerville, that would be in Pfluger Park as like the main stage, if you will. So stage location, types of music, again, I think we're always open to input on that, but it's similar to what we've kind of done in the past, and we're going to just kind of try to mix in everything from small polka acts to country to just really a little bit of anything. Sometimes just your variety, kind of like entertaining, upbeat peeps. And then as far as headliners, is something internally we've kind of pursued is like, again, kind of following in the footsteps of Slice of having like a headline act that's more of a like regional US or mainstream US level like act at some point. So maybe that's a country act is kind of what we've been thinking for this year. We don't necessarily have our eye narrow down to any particular performer or band in particular, but that's something we're starting to turn the wheels on internally with our entertainment contacts in our entertainment company to kind of see what's possible on that. Any thoughts, stages, layout in general?
I have thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went ahead and I emailed Jonathan information for some local bands that are actually pretty stinking good.
Yeah.
Like there's Fun Gus and the Shrooms, and they're so much fun to listen to, and Fuego. They're absolutely fun, and they are all Pflugervillians or Pfluger. What is it? Pflugervillians. That I think would be extremely dynamic and super fun to have, because they're local people performing at something that they absolutely love being at, and yeah. So do I just continue to send those recommendations to? Do I just send them to Jonathan? Do I send them? He's the only email that I have, so.
Perfect.
I have yours, but I didn't know if you would want it.
You can absolutely continue to send them to me. The place
Okay.
where we store that information is events@pflugervilletx.gov.
Okay, wait, hold on.
It's events@pflugervilletx.gov. So that is our events email. When we talk to someone who is interested in playing at one of our events, we ask them to send an email introducing themselves to that, what kind of music they play, a typical range of what their cost would be for an event, and then also if there's any special modifications. So like if they need a larger stage, no stage at all, any of those kind of details that help us in booking.
And then I had another question. Are we gonna have an ASL interpreter or something like that available, or anything for our hearing impaired community? Because we have noticed, at least in my daily life out in Pflugerville, I've noticed an influx of deaf and hard of hearing people that I'm running across all the time.
Yeah, that's great. We can definitely do that. For
Okay.
sure. I think when you're thinking of stages and these types of bands that you're talking about, the cool thing about, if you go back a slide, Bays, just the layout slide, the idea at Pfluger Park is the setup we've always known at Pfluger Park, right? You have the big stage, you have the food, you have the alcohol vendors, and you have a lot of your vendors there in that circle that we always see. We'll get to what we envision Kemple Park being, right? And then Finnig as well. If Finnig has another stage, and that stage has somewhere in the Kemple area potentially has the actual, more in line with the actual Midway or Carnival style vendor that we had previously, years ago, right? Especially if it's a free event, because one of the reasons we got rid of some of that was we were worried about people paying to get in and people paying to get on a slide and people paying to get on something else. But if it's a free event, they want to pay to take advantage of the carnival stuff. That's not now an extra cost. It might be the only cost, right? Or it's like food. It's one of those costs that you only can, participate as you need. But if we have more of the carnival section over there, and then we use Finnig to have some of the kid activities, and then we have a stage over there where it's more family friendly, or more, some local bands, some family friendly bands throughout the day where families can sit there and then look out, and then as you work back towards Pfluger, you see more of what you've experienced. You're having this huge festival now. It's not really this one musical spot. It's this festival in between locations.
How long does it take to walk from Pfluger Park to?
Well, it takes me longer than it takes you. The distance is a quarter mile, right?
It's a quarter mile from Pfluger to Finnig.
It takes about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And you'll still have food vendors and drink vendors and
One of the things we were talking about,
stuff like that in the middle, so that parents aren't like, where do
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, there would definitely be a heavy aspect of like programming particular parts along the trail, where
I guess
it's
we
not
can
like
just
you
say
just
it.
leave one site and you're just like lost in the woods.
We talked
feeling.
about potentially-
like we kind of have those.
Talked about potentially that could be Germantown, right?
Yeah.
That could be the area that you pass through both ways, that you're getting the cultural heritage part of the Deutschen Pfest event.
Oh, it's cute. I like it.
And what do we do for teenagers? I don't have any teenagers anymore, but,
Right.
So I'm not sure what music would be teenager music. But, I mean, what do we do to draw teenagers in?
Yeah, I have teenagers, and I don't know what you do with teenagers. But I think bringing the carnival back is huge for them, and then I think
And food.
right, yeah, and having the opportunity for them to play wherever they want to play. So it's fitting more family, and Kimple is more, adult food or whatever. They can then find the music they're interested in and go either way. But we can also do things that build around the carnival. I know we talked about the. It wasn't a maker mart, but it was a it was a
kids
teen market, or whatever. And we actually had someone that was, I don't know if they were listening to the one person that ever watched this is online, but we had someone reach out and say they do like those types of markets, youth markets specifically. And so we've reached out to them to see if, what it looks like if they manage one of those things and the resources and time and effort that they would put into that. And so we're trying to figure out where that goes, but that may be somewhere even in German land or some area in between the carnival area and the youth area. And so the expanded footprint allows for a lot of programming opportunities.
Oh, so then this is happening. This isn't like in the future. Like this is this year happening.
This could be this year.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
So,
So now I'm
Maybe
tracking.
have a teenager band, or maybe have a
Yeah.
maker's thing.
Yeah, I think you could see some of that stuff throughout the day as well, yeah.
I have a twofer. First, based on entertainment, so now we're sending, because I have bands that are contacting me now
Sure.
from last year.
Yeah.
So we're sending them to events.
Yeah, that's
and
probably the
y'all
best
are gonna
way.
be
Yeah.
booking them, so we no longer have
Right.
contact with the bands.
You can have contacts with them, and you can talk to us. I mean, Melissa's talked to us a lot about bands and her preference as well. So that, we encourage that. But as an advisory committee, you are helping us overall with the overall aspect of the event and allowing us to work on booking and stuff. And we'll come back once we get some folks and say, this is who we're thinking about here, and this is who we're thinking about sliding here. But having two stages,
Will be great.
yeah, right. Instead of, hey, you're not our main stage, you get to go perform in a pavilion or in a gazebo or on a hill somewhere. Having two potential stages and having two distinct audiences for folks to be able to play in front of, I think would be something that would be an improvement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So the dance groups, are we still planning on doing the dance
Yeah,
groups?
obviously this layout's going to require more programming than we had in the past, so we don't anticipate losing the option for dance groups, whether it's on a stage or near a stage, or we dedicate a section where we put some sort of actually flat dance area out and they're performing that off a hill or coming or going into a spot into Germantown or whatever. We definitely anticipate having those community performance options.
And this actually allows us to do that better because then those people are not performing necessarily while the bands
Sound
are performing.
checks or all
So
that stuff.
it gives people an opportunity to, we're essentially making three places. And so in that place-making process, you get to, like Shane said, go to whatever sparks your desire. If that's the dance area, then you get to prioritize that and choose your own adventure, so to speak.
Okay, that sounds good. So I have no spatial reasoning. So how long, so we're talking all three of these parks are gonna be part of the experience.
That's something we're talking about, yes ma'am.
So how far are they apart?
A quarter mile from one side to the other.
Yeah, it's about, was it 0.35? It's about a 10-minute
yeah,
walk from one to the other.
10-minute walk.
But that's
this
all the
is-
way to
to
Finnick.
the end
If
of
you were,
That's from
yeah, if you were
Finnick
getting to
to
Kimball,
But
it's
Fluger to Fenning
Yes.
is a quarter.
So it's
Yes.
about 5
Okay.
minutes probably from, depending on your speed at which you're walking, from Fluger to Kimball.
Yeah, yeah.
Or from Finnick
Pushing-
to Kimball.
pushing.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
thinking Fluger Park to Kemple was like a quarter
Oh,
of
no,
a mile.
no,
I'm like,
all the way
holy cow,
from,
then
so
you're gonna
basically
have
if you go
Fenning.
from like the one corner of the central loop of Fluger through Kemple, like pretty much to where the trail really meets the blue of Finnick, that is, according to Google, average whatever speed that is 10 minutes.
Okay,
And
that makes
another
way more sense to me
yeah,
now.
we think it's a very
Yeah, it looks-
walkable thing. Yeah.
Super huge
It
on
looks
this map.
huge, yeah.
another cool opportunity that this layout presents is we are trail capital of Texas. And so this gives us an opportunity, because you're using the trail, you're not using a road to get from Fluger to Finnick. it gives us an opportunity to share that trail capital of Texas. And we're trying to think about ways in which we can activate that even more. As you all know, we've previously had Fetch a Ride. We've also had shuttles. We've considered things like maybe a walking map on how you can walk from the neighborhoods along our trail system to get to the park for the event.
That's
Cool
adorable.
idea.
Like,
Are you
Can
gonna
also
have a
ride
bike?
a
walk
goat.
from my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have like a bike park station so people can secure their bikes?
That was actually a request from last year as well.
Okay.
So we will make a note of that.
And this might actually be counterintuitive to walking, but any thoughts of like pedicabs and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yeah, we've actually thought about that.
Okay.
For me
Just
specifically.
yeah. Hey, it's a necessity, right?
You know what you could do? You could do rickshaws, and you could have somebody in lederhosens carrying them into, and then it would be a little bit more authentic. You know, I'm just saying.
Okay, that's good to know.
Definitely possible. Yeah. All right. So that's the gist of what we were thinking. Like I said, I think obviously, in one hand, presents a giant programming challenge, but on the other hand, a giant opportunity. So a little bit of both as we move through the early stages here. Gabby, I'll introduce this one if you want to talk about it. So food vendors, beer vendors, retail vendors, all the vendors.
So last year we had a total of 39 vendors, and then we had 17 food vendors. That was more than we had the previous year. So one of the challenges that we've experienced in that park is fitting more vendors, obviously. A lot of you guys have requested that we expand on vendors, and this footprint that we're proposing to you does exactly that. One of the things that we're talking about adding is 2 vendor locations. So we would have a vendor location in Finnick Park and then a vendor location in Pfluger Park. And then that's where we can break it down to having your premium vendors are in Pfluger Park, where the heart of the event is, and then we have our expansion and other vendors in Finnick Park. And the same could be said in Kemple as well. Yeah, and then we have a full rundown of the event later that we can show you what we're thinking exactly with those vendors and when they would be activated, like all that kind of stuff.
Because we turn away vendors
We do.
that, every year, because of footprint, right? We just don't have the space currently to be able to allocate everyone that wants to pay us to be there. And so this would provide some of those opportunities as well.
And that's not necessarily even our choice, but there are fire codes that apply to the vendors, to the food areas, where you have to have 10 feet of space in between the food areas. Every 7 tents has to be broken up so you don't have a tent city. So this expansion and elongating allows us to spread out and not try and cram more into just the Pfluger Park footprint.
So the website's still not up, and there's still not like a vendor link or anything. Also, do you know when that'll be happening? Because
So last year that happened in July, and so it will depend partially on when we decide what
Right.
layout we're moving forward with. But after that, it would be shortly thereafter.
And we're meeting with y'all tonight, so we can meet, as I said previously, with the subcommittee in June 3rd. And whatever we get head nods from y'all, once we go to them, if they're like, yeah, go with this expanded footprint, we think we can support it, then we're rolling out the vendor opportunities as quick as we can to try to fill out these programmable spaces.
I love it.
Another thing we will be rolling out as a part of that too is sponsorships, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, but we want to get on the sponsorship game early this year, and so that would be shortly also after we confirm what the layout's going to be.
So for alcohol, does that mean that we're expanding our allowance for alcohol vendors?
We haven't talked about that completely, and that's something we'll have to get some blessing off of from special event subcommittee, maybe even ultimately council. They may want some sort of council. In the past, this has obviously been something that those service groups, this was a boon week for them. This is their opportunity to make the money that they need to be able to support all these different really great initiatives they have throughout the year. Whether it's Rotary or in the past, I believe it was Lions and Knights of Columbus and others, Friends of Paws now. I think the expanded footprint will provide, first of all, the opportunity for multiple alcohol vendor locations for each of those nonprofits, right? So Paws could potentially have 2 locations, and Rotary could, as well as the other groups that have 1 booth. They could potentially have 2. But I think Jeff met with a group that's the group starting the Local Parks Foundation. So that's a group that may be interested in potentially fundraising for the opportunity to support our parks in the future. And so I think there are some opportunities for expansion of those things. But it's not something I can answer tonight.
Okay.
But we still have the big beer tent?
Yeah, I would imagine Rotary would do that big beer tent. I imagine they would do it in the same spot that they did it before. I do also think that we had community vendors in the past, and we moved those to Sunday. That may be an opportunity where we do it at a fairly discounted rate in those churches, those other service organizations, those youth sports groups, the local dental groups or whatever that had been regulated to Sunday in the past may see an opportunity back to be at Saturday at Finnig. And so that's more of the family, the community fair side over there, with a lot more of the carnival and some of the other things that would be attractors for the family side.
Would y'all like to see more alcohol booths just to get the feedback from the advisory committee?
Yes,
Well,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with an
It's about
expanded.
To me, it's not as big of a deal of like expanding more, like if the council is set on those
Sure.
being, just having more
Of those.
more
things,
of
yep.
those in the different areas.
Whatever that looks like.
Whatever
Just more
that looks
booths.
like, yeah.
Right. Germantown, obviously that area now presents a really cool beer garden opportunity or whatever, so we think that provides a sellable, rentable location as well, and maybe that's an area where we require some sort of only German beer or more German beer than you would do elsewhere in the festival. So you want to do Dos Equis, you can get it from Finnig, but if you want, a more German lager or whatever, you go specifically to Germantown, So there could be some really cool programming things that we see we grow into at those spaces.
We would also be very interested in talking about the vendor booths here to see how, if we did do this event for free, how not charging would affect it. Does it make people more willing to spend money on food and vendor items? This has been brought up to us by Slice. Slice is a free event where you can buy food and alcohol on site. And anecdotally, we heard that sales were great this last year for all of those vendors. And so
Yeah.
this is something interesting to see.
Just out of curiosity, for Slice, did you talk to Prost and Victory and Hanover's?
Victor is very happy with their
I was gonna
attendance. So was Hanover's, and Prost was.
Yeah, it was
over
all
the
packed
moon.
I was at all of
there.
them.
So that should,
Yeah.
yeah.
we did
that should
something-
definitely go into your numbers.
Hat tip to the event staff. They did something where every one of those folks and Three Legged Goat was a vendor on site because it didn't extend to their property. And so Hanover's, Three Legged Goat, Victory Tap, Prost, all had a different color cup that you could only get from their location.
It was so great.
So it's very collectible. That it encouraged people to go to all 3 or 4 locations so you could collect all 4 cups. And people didn't just go once. Felt like those cups were
I saw a couple towers in the crowd.
towers of cups. So.
oh dear.
All right. Anything else on vendors? We can always circle back at any time. It's no big deal. All right, moving on. Kid Zone. Maybe not just kids, but maybe Teen Zone included in this potentially this year, right? Something we've definitely heard. So this is actually a great aerial shot of what the Kid Zone mostly incorporated last year, as far as the Ferris wheel and the big slides and inflatable. And there are a few other like little carnival games right off screen on that shot as well. But so this year, obviously, carnival games, maybe more of an actual like carnival that obviously or potentially caters more to the older kind of teen group as well, instead of just your younger kiddos. Carnival rides, again, potentially still on the table, similar to what we had, also included in a traditional kind of carnival. And then always bounce houses. Other things are also a possibility. I know we've talked about kind of a touch-a-truck, similar to what we did this year at Slice, and is done in many rec programs everywhere. Was a huge hit at Slice. So I think that would be definitely something to consider as well. We talked about also some kind of art walls and different options in our last meeting as well that could potentially go and also fit into that kind of kids area umbrella, if you will, of different things. So again, this may be something where maybe in this layout, the Kid Zone is more focused maybe not entirely, but at least more focused down on the Finnick Park side, and have I think we kind of mentioned possibly the carnival in that like central Kemple Park area as well. So maybe not as much like this picture shows and has had in years, at least the last few years particularly, and Pfluger Park, but maybe more spread out. So any thoughts about kids area? I know we've heard some definitely, again, on teens, more teen activities definitely.
You said we're thinking this would be at Finney Park?
Potentially, yeah. So I think I should have put the map in here more than one time.
I got it right here.
Yeah. So potentially, you could have your like if we had an actual what I call actual carnival, maybe on like the Finnick side of Kemple there, in that kind of square region where the trail comes in and across. So maybe they're operating the carnival there and all of the carnival goodness, and then we have maybe some of the performers on the stage at Finnick are a little more kid focused. Sitting here, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but something to consider. So like I said, maybe Finnick is a little more kid, family, more so focused. I mean, obviously our events are always are very much family focused, but more so than maybe Pfluger would be in a split layout like this.
I kind of like that too, because like if you're thinking about like the teenagers, they get dropped off and stuff like that. This is a much better area to do that than kind of getting in the neighborhood area in Pfluger, and Kemple would just be impossible, right?
Another thing, those that served on the committee previously or know of her, Amy Rabb, who's still on the Parks and Rec Commission and was the chair of the Deutschen Pfest committee last year. She is a teacher at Hendrickson High School this year, and I guess somewhere in Austin they do a thing called Fortlandia.
Yep.
Where they.
It's Lady Bird Johnson, I think.
Yeah, at the.
So she's
Johnson
she
Center.
teaches
I saw it.
something with construction. Mm-hmm. So she's very interested in seeing if her kids could make 1, 2, 3, 4 potential Fortlandia type climbing structures that we could maybe put along a trail, maybe coming out of German land as they're coming off to the family oriented side of this event. That those things could be playable as well.
I don't know if it's a time to ask, but I have a question, or I have a suggestion that connects the possible Fortlandia and maybe the community.
Yeah.
So like I know that we've said like, hey, the churches, things like that. We used to put them in during the fun run on the Sunday. Has there been any conversations about saying like, hey, could you help, like bring them in to try to help us with some of those things,
fun
right?
things.
Like the Fortlandia,
so we had
hey,
talked
run
about
a carnival ride or something like that.
We had talked about if we do this, we may not need that Sunday community festival time.
It'll take
we could invite them to be on the Finnick side, and they could have a really reduced rate, and they could be in the family section, and we could make them provide some sort of family fun carnival type valuable at every one of their booths.
Right.
We also thought potentially that either the fun run happens on Sunday, or the fun run could even happen on Saturday now from the Finnick side. They could still run the run that they would normally run, and it's very family oriented, and they come back and land in an area, and then they're enjoying the atmosphere of the festival going on. So we think this provides a lot of opportunities for those types of.
Yeah, definitely an option. And I forget the name of the church now, unfortunately. But we have something very similar for the Festival of Lights during the parade. One of the local churches actually helps us with the kids area for that. And they kind of run the activities and stuff for the kids there. It's super cool. They do an amazing job. So yeah, that would definitely be something cool like that for sure.
Having been posted in front of the kids area last year with the main stage, does Funning Park have like a structure where the parents seem to post up in the covered structure, and then the kids just kind of ran from spot to spot while their parents sat under the shade and watched them run?
Yeah. So
those karate kids.
There's
They're putting up all their stuff.
Yeah. Under the word Finnig, there's kind of a dark line. That's pretty much the only tree line in that park. So definitely, I think the tent in general was a hit. Having the shade is always nice, even though it's not summer hot. It's still not stand out in the sun all day. Comfortable most of the time that year. So I think that'd definitely be something we looked at.
Yeah, we
for
put
sure. It would be
something
some
on
kind of big shade structure. No doubt.
It just seemed like the families posted up under there, ate their food, and then the kids went and
Yeah,
bananas,
definitely.
and the parents stayed under there.
The other really cool thing that Shane just mentioned, and I don't want to steal Baze and Gabby's thunder here,
Oh, we've been all over it.
is the fun
Tromping all over the thing.
The fun run. The fun run has oftentimes kind of felt like an afterthought on Sunday. It was different vendors. It didn't feel super inclusive of the whole event. We are really excited about the opportunity to potentially have it feel more like a part of the event specifically. So you run, because there are no gates, you are then automatically in the event space itself and can just go after your run and pound a liter of beer if you want to. So
Or root beer.
I like that. I will do that. I will sign up for any fun run that has a beer stand at the end. I'm here for it. I will. If you see me running, run
like
with
a
me. I'm
reward.
going to something or away from something.
Speaking of that, has anybody heard of the beer mile?
That's a pretty brutal.
They're fitting, but brutal.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Lottie's Midnight Margarita
Only
Run.
German
Yeah.
beer only beer.
There you go. Yeah.
Beer mile.
we just feel like moving the fun run to
I like it.
to Saturday
I like it.
includes it in the event.
Have it run around the event too.
Yeah.
That's
We could do some cool
yeah.
stuff. It kind of announces Saturday started.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
a kickoff.
It's the fanfare.
I guess
really
if we're
like
not gonna
that.
have a parade, I guess, the run's good.
It's a parade of people sweatingly
Yeah.
running through.
You just
Wishing
post
they
up the
hadn't
Kimball
signed up.
WP parade all day, both directions. Yeah.
Beer after fun run.
Yeah, so just again, kind of summarize, we would typically, and we'll get to this, we're just getting ahead of ourselves too, but that's okay. Saturday, we would typically start at 10 a.m. So the fun run would, right now, without, putting too much crazy detail planning, say it's at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning out of Pfluger Park, kind of there, we'll start there in the green space. Pretty much then, you would actually go down, for those of you that are kind of familiar with that section of trail, Windermere Park would pretty much be the exact, 1.5 over that and change, halfway point. So you'd really turn around at Windermere, come back to Pfluger, maybe have some live music basically on the main stage at that point. Maybe we can find a sponsor or a beer vendor or someone that would then provide, definitely something we thought about, provide beverages for those that are finishing the race. And then, that's right around 10 o'clock and we're firing up the main stage for real, quote unquote, at 10 o'clock and you're right there in the festival and it's all kicking off. So, and again, Pfluger would already had everybody in from Friday night, which we would still obviously have. So you'd just be right into day 2, right after the run. So, love it.
Awesome.
Then of course we'll continue our swag and kind of Halloweenish theme that we normally use for the run. So, okay.
A zombie lederhosen.
Yes.
We thought about having someone with an accordion chasing whoever's running the run. So
I actually
playing the
know
accordion.
someone. I know someone.
Send it to the events email.
I know
Plays
someone.
with, yeah.
Yes, I know
Right.
someone.
Yeah.
Send it to the events email.
I actually know like 3 someones. He has a
There's no
class
way.
of like a.
There's no way you know
I-
3 accordion runners.
I
Not 3 of those people on a planet.
You're awesome.
trust me, I do.
That's amazing.
They've come to open mic night.
Yes, they're great.
All right. So kind of going to the timeline, which we very briefly touched on. So Friday night would really be time-wise the same, right? We've always done, or at least recently have done 5 p.m. to midnight. That would be about the same. Pfluger Park would be kind of business as usual, full operation, right? You have the main stage, all the vendors will be loaded in around that main loop, just kind of like we normally would have. All your beer vendors, food vendors, everybody's in, rocking and rolling. And Friday's good to go. And then when you look down towards like Kemple and Finnick Park, perhaps all that's happening on Friday night there is the carnival is open and rocking and rolling, and then any, other logistics support, a tent, something like that, whatever, we'll get there. But maybe it wouldn't be, long story short, the full event at Finnig and Kemple for that night. And then come Saturday, like we talked about, event hour says 8. That's just including the fun run out of Pfluger. So really the heart of it would still start 10. And then on here, a change instead of 10 to 10 is potentially 10 to midnight on Saturday as well. And then again, so then pretty much once you hit 10 o'clock on Saturday, both parks, the whole operation is going. You got bands on both stages, all your vendors, all your food and beer vendors, the carnival, everything up and rolling. And then Finnick Park, again, totally debatable, but we'll kind of thrown around is then kind of shutting down operations at Finnick at some point in the evening. 8 is what's on here. The thought is kind of by the time that the headline performer in Pfluger on the main stage goes on, that the carnival's still rolling, but then again, maybe all the kind of family-oriented stuff at Finnick Park is kind of shutting down. The sun, I think, sets right around 7 o'clock. So we're kind of shutting down Finnick Park. Shortly after that, sometime around there, the headliner comes on at Pfluger to close out the night in the event on Saturday. And then there would be, in this scenario, no Sunday activities. Thoughts? Ideas?
It's kind of a big gap between closing down the carnival and then having the main stage headliner come on.
We could potentially keep the carnival open in Germantown, but you start to shut
Yeah.
down the community spots
Yeah.
and that stage. It allows us to start breaking that down, allows those vendors start to go out of Finnig, whatever church potentially or dentist office that paid a very small fee or no fee to be there, depending on what we talk about. They're probably out of candy and trinkets and whatever they've been doing to do that family side. And maybe it's 9 o'clock or whatever. If it goes too late in, we're going to have to put infrastructure up, lights, just for
Right.
an hour or two, and then have to take it all down. So we're just trying to figure out a way, because we're not doing gates and because all the revenue is potentially vendors, just as cheap as possible, that we could operate that spot. And it could grow, right? We could do 8 first year, and we could be like, this is a cool event. It's cool to have all this layout, but we need to go to 10 or whatever it is.
So if there's no gates or no security around, then, well, I don't mean security, but like, you're not in
Things
an
that prevent
enclosed.
people from going in. And
Yeah,
out.
if you're not in an enclosed area, then, I mean, having worked it before, like, I know we left stuff.
Yep.
And so we didn't worry because, it was in an enclosed area and we knew that there were police there, but what are
those options?
Well, yeah,
we
like,
understand
because
that that's a concern.
that's a 14-hour day on Saturday. Like
Sure.
we came back Sunday and did stuff. Like, but that's for a vendor. That's a 14-hour day.
So we've definitely talked to police, and
Wait, longer than that. Hang on, 16 hours. I can't do math right now.
it's a long day.
It's a long day.
It is. And we've talked to police about having, obviously, police officers still there. We've talked about internally having some of maybe renting a big tent, and then we're able to shut that tent down. And so anybody that's under that tent, the police are just securing that spot. We've talked about potentially Germantown and other areas having just like smaller fencing around that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that we're doing with fencing, there's a cost to it. But we are working through that.
Would
process.
you allow vendors to stay on site? Like if they had a camper or whatever, would you have like a little camper area so they could have somebody around and
I think the carnival folks have done that in the past. I have the right, or anybody above me, so city manager's office ultimately also has the right to just permit an RV. I don't know if I let RV stay overnight, then I'm asking every RV to leave by 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. that next day. They don't all do that, but we're working on trying to figure a way to mitigate that.
Weren't there RVs behind the big stage, like in a neighborhood?
There were RVs that we
staff.
brought in for
Oh,
staff,
staff,
like
okay.
break rooms, but there weren't RVs that were people sleeping overnight in. Yeah.
Okay, and are you going to invite the PD and the FD to have booths? Because
So-
they generally have good swag.
Yeah, they were both at last year's.
Yeah, and I think they would find a lot of value in the community spot, especially if we did a touch a truck along the trail at some point, things like that. Yeah.
Another thing that we learned from Slice, Shane mentioned we had to cancel our 24 art vendors. That was because of high winds. And so one of the things that we've learned from that is that potentially a better option than having vendors provide their own tents is to provide a big tent that everyone can set up under, which are weighted down by much heavier water barrels and cement blocks, to prevent some of those issues of, Shane has said it before, it's not your tent often that you're worrying about, it's your neighbor's tent, because you don't know if they've weighted it down correctly. And if it blows into yours, all bets are off. And so that is one of the lessons that we learned from Slice that has us considering for all of our events in transitioning to more event tent than the pop-ups. PD also mentioned last year in the after action if it is pop-ups, they want sides on them or for the vendors to pull them down so that it better covers their items. So that's something that police mentioned specifically in last Deutschen Fest after action.
And when they're walking or doing whatever security measures they're doing overnight, the tent's brought down, the sides are up, and so it'd be more obvious someone's in it, and it would be tougher for them to do anything without extending it up, which is a lot easier to see over the course of a park potentially. So we are talking with them. That's probably the biggest concern of this huge event is not having fencing, which means we don't have gates, but we also don't have some security measures. We do think we're going to have some fencing. And as we're still having those conversations, if this isn't something y'all are interested in or ultimately subcommittee can't support, then it is what it is, and we go back to the footprint we've had previously. But we think there's a lot of community opportunities, a lot of program opportunities, a lot of really cool opportunities with the growth of this over those couple of parks over that quarter mile of space. But there are some things we're going to have to work on actively as a staff with police and others to figure out a way to solve those problems as well.
Just from my experience being so close to the park, it didn't matter if there was gates up. There was people all over the park.
Yeah.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
They
It's
walked
just
in all the time.
they were walking in all the time. I don't know of any scenarios where people were getting their stuff taken. So I don't know. I'm not really sure that the way we were doing it before
Was
made
any
it
more secure?
any more secure, right? In terms of the kids area, I think it makes sense to start breaking down that area because sun goes down, the little ones start just turning into pumpkins, right?
Yeah.
But having the carnival a little later, I think makes sense.
They'll probably have their own lights, things like that.
Right,
So
since they're coming
I
in.
think they could go till midnight potentially,
Yeah.
and they would probably want to if
Make
you
money.
paid $12 for a all access pass or whatever they're going to charge. You're probably going to want all your value out of that. I saw Flip had a hand up too.
Long time listener.
Whoa.
I guess from a marketing perspective, what's the goal? What's y'all's goal? How many people do you want at this event?
A lot.
I want them all.
Yeah.
What's the number?
So it's 6,300 over 2 days. 6,500.
6,500.
6,500 over 2 days, and I think we had 6,300 the year before. Is that where I'm getting that number from? So somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 over the last 2 years. So what Flip is saying, are we asking for 12, 15 over the course of 2 days?
It's good to have one.
20?
You gotta be very specific. What's the number? What's the goal? What are we trying to get to?
I'd say in the next 10 years, at least 12,
Double.
15.
Yeah.
Let's double it. in the
Yeah,
next
just
5
based on the
years.
expansion.
Yeah.
If we can get twice as many people.
And then since we're not going, which my bodyguard was telling me that we're not going full for German, are we considering maybe bringing some different bands, like Latin bands?
We had Latin bands
Yeah.
last year, didn't we?
Yeah, we're definitely.
Yeah.
I think the 2 stages provide us more band opportunities. The German spot, our pitch has been specifically Germantown. That's where we could have some of the German interactions and the German accordions or polka or whatever in that little section. It makes it feel really, have a beer garden there, makes it feel very German in that spot. But then those 2 stages provide a couple different opportunities for, I think, a really diverse lineup.
Because there's a Peso Pluma that's pretty popular right now. For the teens.
There we go.
I don't think we can afford them.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
That's big time.
I've never heard of them.
When you talked about the music, remember when they used to have the German music in the entrance?
When you walked in, yeah.
When you walked in, I think one day they put a flatbed out there and they were
Yeah.
playing on. Is there a plan to try to bring that back? And
For sure.
I felt like that was
that's what's
kicking
calling
things
you to German land.
I feel
that's-
like having something
you
like that.
hear it before
for
you
instance,
see it. You're like, what is that? Yeah.
for sure.
Like at the end of the fun run.
Yes.
Yeah.
Type of thing, like
Like
when
a
people are coming
celebrate
back from
finish,
the run and you're kicking off the event, at 9, 10 o'clock, like having,
Yes.
it's a small act, but pumping that energy through the park would be really cool.
It would make me want to have a beer even
That's
more.
where you get your
Yeah.
accordions.
Yeah.
We've gone as far as to kind of go in on some of the Ren Fair stuff, maybe a little bit, in hiring some actors who represent German culture and heritage,
I know
and
people.
walking around in
3
later
accordion
and
runners,
speaking
right?
German, and to make it feel like an immersive
I know
activity. So just essentially they would be greeters for us, saying,
Here's the
"Guten
thing.
Tag, hope you're having a great day."
You know you don't have to hire them, right? You know you don't have to hire them. What you do is you put out a thing calling all cosplayers or whatever that have XYZ, come here. You give them a food ticket, you give them 2 drink tickets, and you tell them, have fun. And they're like, ooh, I get to dress up. And you don't always have to hire people. You could very easily, with the cost of a couple beers and some drink tickets, I mean, I could probably get you 25 people right now. That would be like, absolutely, I'll be there, I'm down.
Okay. And if we're gonna lean into the Ren Fair stuff, can you bring the heckler that sticks his head through the and he throws potatoes at him? I love that guy.
I'm writing it down.
Dude,
No, you
he
cannot.
heckles you
He
and
is-
you throw tomatoes at him.
He's very inappropriate. He is not kid
sorry.
friendly. You
Maybe
cannot
Friday
trust
night.
what is going to come out of
Yeah.
his mouth because he has mental issues that we're not going to discuss on recordings. But no, he is great. But yeah, no, you
I caught him right in the ear one time. He was heckling a little kid, and I was on the one side and got him right in the ear.
Hero.
There's also a dunk booth now. I don't know if you saw the dunk booth this
No, I
last
didn't.
year. There's a new dunk booth, and she's pretty spicy too.
You up for the dunk booth, Shane?
I do it every summer for July is Parks and Rec month, and I get talked to doing it every summer, and I hate it the whole hour I'm doing it. But sure, why not? One more time.
Maybe a church can do the dunk tank.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
You can take it off.
That's right.
Pretty sure we can fit a dunking booth on the main stage for you.
There, oh boy.
But I'm sure we could do a tomato thing. Just not have him. I love him. He's great. He's amazing. He's fabulous. He's wonderful. But
A less version of him.
yeah,
German
like a PG,
version.
like
Yeah,
a
a
PG version.
Yeah, the Disney Pixar version.
Yeah, he doesn't speak PG. He
Okay.
only speaks pirate.
Is there any other songs?
Rated R.
Is there any other songs?
We have 4C.
Okay. What's 4C?
Well,
Okay.
we actually have more 4B left.
What do we,
Moving
yeah.
on.
Oh,
So,
Fun part.
one of the things that the special events subcommittee asked, and one of the things that we talked about in our last Wonder session, is the potential budget effects of not having gates. So I'm not going to get too far in the weeds on this, but I did want to provide some preliminary info.
Tough to see. It's not so much for you to see it as much. Just he's going to talk about it.
Testing your eyesight. So on the left side is last year, what was actually spent. On the right side is an estimation of what we might be looking at. So you can see last year we spent about $36,000 on performers. Our most expensive one was $6,000. Our least expensive was $150. So it's kind of a wide range. In this new option, we would be paring down the number of performers because while we would have 2 main stages, we would not be running the gazebo, which is where a lot of these smaller performers were at. They would instead fit into the local on the right side and would be our performers probably on the stage 2 at Finnig and some of them also on stage 1 in Pfluger. We are looking, the vendor that we used for Slice of Pflugerville to book Los Lonely Boys, Baze and Gabby have had a meeting with him, and we have tasked him with finding some people within our budget range who are big name headliners. So you can see Friday night stage 1, we're looking for a regional type performer, someone who has a regional draw. They would be the headliner with a Texas, hopefully, opener. The second night, Saturday, is an all-out big night. So that is a Texas opener and then hopefully someone of national recognition. Not the Los Lonely Boys, but someone of the Los Lonely Boys caliber who's going to draw in people from potentially all over the state. So in this option, that turns out to about $79,000. It's hard to project exactly, so these are projections. But you can see we about double our cost in performers.
So next slide, so you can give them a full picture of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, next is logistics. Logistics actually doesn't change very much. One of the only things that's removed here is the carnival. The carnival would, in this scenario, be its own. They would be, any proceeds they make would be theirs.
And we're not expecting to see every line once again. Basically, it's the same sort of setup minus potentially a carnival as far as logistic costs. We know there's going to be some gates still. We know we'll have some savings from not having to bring in some of the carnival stuff. So I think the number goes from 80 to 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
What about parking?
yeah, we're still going to have to
Yeah,
try to
it
get
would
parking
still
in a
be
couple
part
different
of it.
locations, especially if this goes from 6,500 to 12 or 13,000 people.
Well, what about the field?
Yeah, just right by it.
And
Friday
shuttling
night
from the
in
field?
the fall will be tough.
Yeah,
It'll
the
be a
field
football game.
is
Right,
Oh,
TBD.
that's right.
But Saturdays in the fall, we're
Saturday.
hoping that potentially it's an option.
And the field we won't know until August because we can't put in a request with the ISD until the new school.
And they're working on all their schedules, football season.
We asked.
Just thinking that I'd cut down on having to pay
Yeah.
for all the different parking
Well, and
lots.
Finnick has some parking options. That road has some parking options. The local elementary school, unfortunately, kids don't drive to elementary, but so elementary schools normally don't have a lot of parking. But that little elementary school around the corner has the teacher parking lot, which I think has.
They have a big parking lot in the back.
Yeah.
On the back area, so it's got quite a few spaces.
So
back there.
I think a lot of the family attendees, the ones that are going to be really interested in Finnick Park, may not feel like they have to ride a shuttle, or potentially, there's at least an alternative option for them. We also know the brunt of the neighborhood in the past has been one of his friends and family. But spreading this out over 3 potential parks allows that spread to happen throughout the neighborhoods, and hopefully we're not negatively impacting those neighborhoods. I'm imagining people have been parking there for a long time, but it's spread out in such a way that it's not 300 people trying to park in front of one's house.
Right.
Well, you don't have to put a bunch of cones everywhere too. You know. What
Yeah,
I mean?
there's options. I mean,
Yeah.
we could cone off a lot of those things. We
Sure.
could make those zones that weekend one-way or anti-parking spots, and we could even, if we went to council and got support, it could be ticketed and those types of things. I don't know if we want to get that far down the rabbit hole of some of these things, but we know that parking's going to be an issue. We know that there'll be some relief from the neighborhood. Finnig will have some parking opportunities in the school, not so much the field, but the elementary school potentially could have some alleviation of that as well.
Some people just park at the school and walk down.
Yep.
And once again, things like potentially have a walking map to the event. We're going to try and push people to not drive to the parking lot, get on a shuttle. They can if they want to, but we're going to encourage optional ways to get there, fetch a ride, or walking, or biking.
Go to the next slide.
I like that.
So this is the overall layout. Once again, I know it's kind of small from this distance. So essentially, what it goes to is, I'm actually going to stand up. I can't see it.
Newsflash, it costs a lot more if you don't charge people entrance.
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
As far as revenue projections, in 2023 we made $118,000 roughly. In 2024, with this setup, not charging for gates, projected we would make about $87,000.
Make sure you're close to that mic if you're talking.
As far as the expenses, last year we were looking at $156,000. For 2024, because of bands primarily, we would be at 168. So expenses are not going down that much. Revenue is hard to predict exactly depending on the layout. We may have more vendors, which may drive up that vendor cost or the vendor revenue. But in just taking out the admissions, we're looking at 118 to a drop into 87,000.
We definitely think that the expanded layout provides more sponsorship opportunities, more vendor booth opportunities. We do think there's some recovery options for those revenues. And we haven't
If you want to go to the next slide, please.
completely tracked everything down, but we are working on what that looks like.
So it wouldn't put
Wow.
us in a hole necessarily. We wouldn't be at a negative. We'd just be making less, which goes back to the question of what's what's our goal then? If we're gonna make money, what do we need to
Right.
shoot for?
It's probably been a long time since this event's ever made money, but
That's why it says cost recovered and not not straight revenue. So that's what we're working on here. Is we've always recovered some of the cost. That's the true question: is
and
how
we
much.
don't want to put the cart before the horse as far as speaking for council, but in the past, council has been very supportive of this event and its community aspect and the impact that maybe the city doesn't make a lot of money, but once again, those service groups, the Rotaries, the Lions Clubs, those other Paws Foundation, those types of groups, the little Boy Scout group that does the ice the whole time, make the type of money they need to be able to support the community. So I don't know what sticker shock this will be, for the subcommittee. Ultimately, we serve at and get direction from, in a lot of ways, council, and this is one of those decisions that'll be them decision. We are trying to reflect this the best we can in our budgetary process right now, and so far, although that process hadn't got all the way to council with city leadership, it seems to have had its support, and so I think we're tracking in the right direction, and I think it's a really cool event that has the potential to recover different revenue streams in the future, and maybe even find a much smaller delta than what we're talking about right now. I think year one we'd probably be at some sort of large deficit, but if we really knock it out of the park and we really have a good headline band, and Germantown's a lot of fun, and that family area is really cool. Not only do I think vendors will be more likely to pay for those opportunities in future years, but sponsors would probably be more likely to have their name associated with some of that stuff. So I think at some point, and it's the burden of that aspect is on y'all's shoulders. I think at some point Deutschen Pfest at Pfluger Park has done everything it could do. It's had a lot of different iterations. It's had some really great years. It's had some really lean years at different times. Some of that's weather affected or whatever. But I don't think it can grow much more in just Pfluger Park. I think if it's going to grow, we either have to take it to 1849 Park, which doesn't have the infrastructure, the shade, but maybe does have parking, or expand like we're expanding now in a way that does have shaded areas and some really cool other programming opportunities, but still has issues with parking and gates or whatever. And so I don't think you're going to see a lot out of Deutschen Fest in the next 10 or 15 years if we don't make a hard decision and have a really tough discussion about what does the expansion of that look like, and what does a couple potential lean years look like before people get comfortable with this is a really cool festival. It's a 3-park festival. It's a 2-day festival that, whatever that looks like, whatever people start to connect with it. I think it's going to take time.
With the meeting last time, they talked about the demographics that were brought in,
Mhm.
like people from San Antonio were coming here.
That's all through the efforts of comms. They did a really focused effort on some of the marketing, and I think that's why Flip's trying to figure out what y'all want, because if you want another regional event, they're going to market outside of Austin to try to, whether it's on, whatever, texashighways.com or blankblank.com, whatever it is, to start to advertise this event and to get a larger draw. But yeah, I think you saw them put some money into Facebook ads, or I don't know anything about comms, but I call Flip daily. Please, Flip, teach me how to use my iPhone. But they did a concerted effort in some things that saw a rise in San Antonio attendance, and so and that was with a very short turnaround. So if we get some of this signed off from y'all and subcommittee likes this, we have a larger lead in on things like that.
PDC seems to be wanting Pflugerville to be a tourist destination. Well, this is perfect for that.
Yeah, and Flip works with the hot tax funds. So Flip would be the person to talk to when you're talking about how you're using those funds in that way.
Are you still doing the shirts?
The shirts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as long as I'm here, we're doing shirts.
Okay.
That's the only reason I'm still here. What are we doing?
Are we doing the design like?
We probably won't do the wide range of.
Yeah.
We did a
Maybe
lot of
streamline it
shirts
a
last
little.
year.
Yeah. So, like randomly, people will be like,
Although
hey,
they
where
sold,
was that shirt at?
we had a lot of shirt sales. I think we had.
We did.
Yeah.
I can't remember the number. It was a big number in shirt sales.
I'm just here for the shirt.
Hey,
Gotcha. covered.
get all 7 designs.
We had one of those slides.
Yeah. get them.
Maybe at the end.
Limited edition.
It's not on.
There actually
We'll
was a-
get you whatever the shirt sales were. But yeah, we had a good number of shirt sales. But yeah,
I think just with the expansion of Pflugerville, it was definitely going to increase the attendance at something like this. Pflugerville's grown so much.
sure, yeah. Well, before we go to future meeting schedule, our next meeting will be with the event subcommittee, and we don't have this as an action item, but I feel like I'm getting enough support or head nods is that this is still something you're interested in, the layout, the potential, even the budget constraints, and even some of the security concerns. We're still enough interested in it to go back to subcommittee and get more of a blessing, and then to really hone in on what we need next. Okay, that's great for us.
And the quicker the better, so we can start
Yes,
marketing.
ma'am. Well, June 3rd at 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
That's right, I know. Okay, cool. 4C?
So 4C, this is our last item, discussion regarding future committee meeting schedule. We appreciate your flexibility. We've done some of that flexibility so that we can get these meetings done when we needed them to before the special events subcommittee. So as Shane mentioned, those are on the first Mondays. The second Mondays are library board. You may be wondering why that affects us. That is held at the library, which takes our video equipment off-site. Second and fourth Tuesdays are council meetings, so we will not be available during that time. And then third Thursdays is the Parks and Rec Commission. So those are not possible meeting dates. If you would like to set a more regular meeting, we just want to talk about what the possible options are. And then I will do a doodle poll asking what the committee
Works best, yeah.
Yeah. So the possible reoccurring days are the third or fourth Mondays, the first or third Tuesdays, any of the Wednesdays, and then the first, second, or fourth Thursdays.
No, 8 a.m. though is not enough.
So I can't do Thursdays.
Okay?
I work Thursdays. I literally just work.
It's like,
And location, it's my day. Don't take my day from me. I'm gonna be at work
we'll
right
get
now.
we'll get you an HR form so you can fill
Right
it out.
now.
Can
Is there
any-
any
I
other-
have a really cool boss though, so I mean, you know,
Oh, no,
he
it's
let
too
me-
late. Too late.
He let me skip out the last 2 times,
You
but I
did not
don't think
leave.
he's gonna let me the next time. Okay, guys?
That's what you gotta lead with next
Not
time.
Thursday.
No Thursdays.
Is there anybody else who has a date that
Doesn't work, yeah. Okay, so,
Mondays are the least desirable.
Yes.
so if we do a doodle poll for Tuesdays or Wednesdays, we're hitting a
Yeah.
pretty sweet spot.
Yeah.
Okay. Were we Wednesdays last year?
Yeah, I think it was
Third Mondays last
third
year.
Monday.
Oh, was it?
yeah.
Okay.
Second Wednesday. Okay. Equity board. Okay.
Those dirty dogs.
So I will send out then a poll for the first, third, or fourth Wednesdays
And
the
Tuesdays, yeah.
first or third Tuesdays
Okay.
for the committee to, and just be honest, share your availability on that doodle poll, and then we will move from there.
If you don't know doodle poll, it's just one of these software things that Flip invented or something where you can click all the boxes that work for you, and it somehow magically counts it all up.
It's the same platform that y'all been getting the previous ones through.
Okay, and if I have a motion to adjourn,
Motion.
and a second,
Second.
all right, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:50. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.